In today's video, we're looking at Ollie Gordon, running back out of Oklahoma State. What are his strengths and weaknesses? How is he utilized at the next level? What's his draft stock looking like? And most importantly, how is he going to do for us in fantasy? Watch to the end of this video, and you should have a pretty good idea. So, Ollie Gordon, height and weight wise, he's give or take 6'2", 225 pounds, which is pretty elite size. I don't know if you necessarily want a running back that big in all scenarios, but he is a quite large man for sure. He is a true junior, so he is 21 years old and will be 21 for the entirety of his rookie season. I personally like younger running backs, so I think this is kind of good for him. So he did spend all three of his years at Oklahoma State. In 2022, as a true freshman, he only had 305 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he didn't really get on the field too much, but he did average 5 yards a carry, which is, nice. Now, in 2023, this is when Ollie Gordon was really generating some, first, second round buzz as a prospect. Was considered one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best running back in 2023. Where he had almost 300 carries for 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns. And he only had 2 fumbles to show for it, so that is pretty good. And he averaged 6.1 yards a carry, which is absolutely insane for the amount of carries that he had. You don't really see that all that often. And then this past season at Oklahoma State, they were a much worse football team. They didn't win a single game in their conference, so that's not great. And he took a big step back, which tanked his draft stock considerably. He only had 854 yards on about 100 less attempts, with 189 attempts and 12 touchdowns. Now, he still found the end zone quite a bit this year, but you could tell, you look at the run grades per PFF, they tanked. I mean, he was one of the higher graded running backs last year in 2023. Compared to in 2024, so he definitely tanked pretty hard. I think that's a mixture of the team constantly playing from behind, so he didn't get nearly as many attempts. And I also think Ollie Gordon's quite limited as a running back in terms of elusiveness. So moving on to some of the receiving stats, he doesn't really do much in that department. I will say in 2023, though, he did have 39 catches and 30 catches this year. So he's not like a liability like somebody like maybe Tank Bigsby, for example. But he definitely isn't going to be – he'll be in that kind of Derrick Henry range of, pass catchers, which obviously isn't that big of an upside. So looking at some advanced stats for Ollie Gordon, we looked at every draft-eligible FBS running back with at least 100 attempts this year, which was about 75 in the sample size. Unfortunately, Ollie Gordon only had 189 carries this year, which compared to last year, he almost had, in 2023 rather, he had almost 300 attempts. So normally when you have less carries, your efficiency goes up. Well, with Ollie Gordon, it's quite the opposite. With less carries, became less efficient with those less carries. And part of the reason, like I said, Oklahoma State was not a very good football team this year. They couldn't really run block that well. They were always playing from behind, so they couldn't really utilize Ollie Gordon that much. Considering what type of runner Ollie Gordon is, he's a power back at his truest form. He's not offering you too much out of the backfield. And so he was kind of in a limited role in the offense because of that, because they were always playing from behind, so they always had to pass. So these PFF grades are definitely not in his favor whatsoever, which is kind of why we're a little out on him. We'll get to that in a moment. But as far as yards per attempt go, 4.5 was tied for 60th. He was not a very efficient runner this year. And because of how he runs the football, he's going to be very scheme dependent. He's going to be very run blocking dependent as well. He's going to need to be on a team that has a pretty solid offensive line when it comes to run blocking, or he's not going to be very efficient. So his landing spot's definitely going to matter. I feel the same kind of way with Quishon Judkins, but I think Quishon can definitely create for himself more than Ollie Gordon can. In terms of breakaway run percentage, 29.8 was 58th in the sample size. He's not a very explosive runner by any means at all. He's actually quite slow. The combine for the running backs just took place this morning as I'm recording this, and he ran a official 4.62, which obviously is not fast. In terms of his PFF rushing grade, 76.9 was 51st in the sample size, so he was not particularly good there. In terms of his PFF receiving grade, though, 73.2 was 11th in the sample size, which I find quite interesting because I don't really feel like he offers that much in the receiving game, but PFF says otherwise. In terms of yards per route run, 0.77 was 44th in the sample size. He didn't have many yards. I think he had a total of like 500 yards through 3 years at Oklahoma State through the air, so definitely not anything impressive there. Elusiveness rating, 74.2 was 37th in the sample size. I would have thought with how kind of tight and he's just not very shifty, in my opinion. So I would have thought that this would have been much lower, but I do think in elusiveness it does count like missed tackles forced and things like that. It calculates that into the grade. So if that's the case, that does make sense. But when we come to missed tackles forced, 41 was tied for 28th in the sample size. I did see this on film a good bit of him not particularly showing me the ability to break multiple tackles consistently. Now, he does do it from time to time. Now, one tackler, what I've seen a lot with Ollie Gordon is somebody would go to tackle him, and it would slow him down, but they wouldn't be able to get him down completely, and it would take multiple guys kind of ganging up on him to tackle him. Similarly to how you see with, like, Derrick Henry from time to time, things like that, where, you know, Derrick Henry, if you're trying to arm tackle him, especially if it's around the line of scrimmage, he's able to, like, run a little bit more, get a couple extra yards before, you know, a linebacker or an extra DB comes in and tackles him. But he can also be taken down pretty easily, Derrick Henry, that is, with leg tackles, you know, wrapping his legs up. So that's kind of similar tackling style when it comes to trying to tackle Ollie Gordon. So they're very similar in that aspect. So this missed tackles force number, I think, is about right. He does make people miss with physicality, but he's just not fast enough so the defense can catch up to him relatively quickly and kind of gang up on him and pile up on him. Now, in terms of his rushing receiving yards per game, you see 71.16 is decent. They played 12 games this year, so 854 is not particularly impressive. Receiving yards, 16.5 a game. Like I said, he's not going to offer you too much out of the backfield. And then total touchdowns, he did have 14 this season, which is pretty good. It means over one touchdown a game on average. And this was a team that was very bad, so he was one of their few bright spots this year. So let's do a quick recap of Ollie Gordon before we go over to the grades. So Ollie Gordon is a running back out of Oklahoma State. He's a little under 6'2" if you go by his combine measurables, but he is around that 225-pound mark, which is very great size for the position, especially if you're a power back. So as far as his class, he is a true junior, so that means he's a little bit younger, which is solid. I like my prospects to be younger personally. And as far as our valuation on him, we think he's going to be a 5th-round pick. He had a great opportunity this morning to run these drills and kind of wow some of these scouts, but he kind of underperformed for me in my opinion. He didn't look particularly great on any of the agility drills, some of these running back drills with the high steps over the bags and things like that. He just didn't really impress me, and if that's the case, he definitely didn't impress any scouts. And he ran the slowest 40 time of any running back in the class with a 4.62. So he definitely did not impress there. So I think he's going to be in that 5th to 6th round pick range, even though he had insane production in 2023. Like I said, I think he's going to have to go to a team that run blocks really well in order to get some get some value in fantasy. If he goes to a team that just does not have a great O line, he's going to be my low comp, which we'll see in just a second. So my high comp for him is Najee Harris. I know in the fantasy community, especially the dynasty community, Najee Harris is a back-to-back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, yet nobody wants him in fantasy. And that's because he's just not very efficient when running the ball. And Pittsburgh is relatively good at run blocking, and that's why he keeps getting these 1,000-yard seasons. And that could be something that Ollie Gordon could do at his ceiling, in my opinion. I don't see a guy. I know people compare him to Derrick Henry. I don't see Derrick. I see Derrick Henry as far as his run style. Like, he runs kind of high. Particularly once he gets past the line of scrimmage, he's kind of hard to tackle. But he doesn't have that long speed that Derrick Henry does. So you're not going to see any of these big plays, right? So I think his ceiling is Najee Harris, because you saw Najee Harris. I think his longest run of the year was like 40 yards, and he got caught from behind. I think the same thing's going to happen with Ollie Gordon. Like I said, he ran a 4.62. He's not going to be burning anybody. Now, as far as my low comp, Peyton Barber was one of these guys that came into the NFL and was a big physical back, and he just never really he was never really consistent, and, never really found a role on a team. And, unfortunately, I love Ollie Gordon. I love the player from 2023. But 2024 really exposed some of the things that he's not good at. And if I had to bet my life on it, I would be leaning more towards the outcome of the low comp instead of the high comp. Now, obviously, I'd love Ollie Gordon to come in and be that Derrick Henry type of runner, but I'm just not seeing it on the film this year. I also paired the grades with the 2023 film because I wanted to see him at his best in a good situation. So the grades did come up a bit because of that. Moving on to the official grade, we gave him a 68 out of 100, which is, in our color legend, we kind of need more kind of descriptions for these. He's not really in our good tier per se. He's in that below average tier prospect for us, but I think there should be a tier between the good and below average that we'll need to add, and I think that's where Ollie Gordon would fit, in my opinion. So, in terms of his actual running style, his contact balance was very solid, so we gave him a 4 out of 5 there. I mean, he's pretty good at shaking off these arm tackles and things like that, and is able to run through people pretty consistently. It's just when he gets ganged up on is when it's a problem. In terms of his physicality, he went down a little bit. He didn't get these extra yardage when putting his shoulder down and kind of trying to truck over these defenders. He kind of just fell down over them. Kind of how Najee Harris does in the NFL if you've seen him play. So we gave him a 4.5 out of 5. If he was able to just show me a little more physicality, we probably would have given him a 5 out of 5. In terms of his vision, when there was a hole, he was able to hit it and move upfield. Not very quickly, but he was able to hit the holes when they were open. So I didn't see any bad decisions made on film, really. It's just if there is a cutback lane that opens up, he can't really consider that because he doesn't have the lateral agility to hit that cutback lane. So in a lot of these instances where there is a cutback lane, he has to just hit the original hole where the play is designed to go. And, that's usually a 1 or 2 yard gain. So he doesn't really have like that RJ Harvey ability to cut it to the outside because he's just not that fast. He's just too big. So we give him a 4 out of 5 there. In terms of ball security, he's had a ton of carries. I think he's had close to 600 carries. And he's only had 5 fumbles. And that's pretty solid to me. Ball security, I didn't see any on film. And I don't think it's going to be a issue at the next level at all. It could have been maybe a 4.5, but I give him a 5 out of 5. I really think he's exceptional at protecting the football, considering how many times he's just been hit. In terms of his run IQ, again, I thought it was above average, 3.5 out of 5. I don't see him making stupid decisions with the football. He's just very physically limited due to his speed and lack of agility. And that means he can't hit the cutback lanes that I'd like him to hit. And we gave him a pretty big knock on that because he may be smart enough to know that cutback lane's there, but he just can't hit it. So it's it's kind of a big problem with him, in my opinion. In terms of speed, we give him a 5.5 out of 10. He is not very fast at all. I mean, he's going to be one of the slower running backs if he has an opportunity to be a bell cow back like his profile suggests he should be. He's probably going to be one of the slower backs in the NFL. It's definitely below average, in my opinion. In terms of his acceleration, though, I gave him a 6 out of 10. It's not otherworldly. It's not an insane burst, but he does like to hit the... Once he hits that hole and gets moving upfield, he has got that kind of Derrick Henry type of ability to accelerate. It's just his top speed's not even close to Derrick Henry's. So, when he does accelerate, he accelerates relatively quickly. It's just his top speed is nothing special. So I thought his acceleration to get to max speed was decent, so that's why you get a 6 out of 10 there. In terms of deceleration, it's average. It's not particularly great. He doesn't really use it that often. He's just trying to hit the hole and get, 2-3 yards if it closes up, whatever. He doesn't have the great ability to get skinny like that. So he's just hitting that 2-3 yard gain. And if there is an open hole that he can get that's in this short cutting range for him, he'll hit it and then, try to get 15-20 yards. But that's like his ceiling for a play, in my opinion. So the deceleration wasn't particularly good when it comes to making people miss or anything like that. Agility, now, in my notes, I at first said this guy may have some of the worst agility I've ever seen on film. It was not very good. And then I watched other games, and then I did see he had some of the ability to make guys miss. He does have a little bit of wiggle to him. It's just not particularly consistent, one. And two, I don't think it works at the NFL level. I think he's going to be just a power back at the NFL level. So if I would have just watched the first 3 games and graded him based off that, it probably would have been a 1 to a 0.5. But he did show me some promise in the 2023 games and a couple games this year, so I bumped my grade up to 2.5 there. In terms of change of direction, it's kind of the same story with our agility. Did not look very good in some of the games that I saw, and then it looked good in other games. Not great, but solid. So that's where you come up with a 2.5 out of 5 grade there. Like I said, I think he's just going to be a downhill runner that hits the hole that's given to him, and he gets as many yards as he can. I think he might be a good goal line back at the next level, but that's about it, in my opinion. Now, in terms of his catching ability, I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. When he was utilized, it's not like he's dropping the football or he's anything terrible at catching the football. He's got pretty natural hands. You don't want this guy. It's not like a Justice Hill type or something like that where you throw him the ball on the flat and he goes and gets you 8, 10, 15 yards because he's so explosive. Ollie Gordon is not that. You're going to throw him the ball when, literally nothing else is open. You're giving him the check down, give him, 3-4 yards, and then he's going to get tackled. He's not particularly good after the catch. So I gave him a 3.5 out of 5 there for catching. Route running, though, I did see him run some flat curl routes. I did see him even run a wheel. So they did use him. I don't know why you would want to put Ollie Gordon on a wheel, especially at the next level due to his speed. But they did throw him one, and he did catch it. So I got to give him a 3.5 out of 5. Not all running backs in college are running Texas and wheel routes. So that's good. That's good to see. And then run after catch. I know you just heard me say earlier that he's not particularly good after the catch, but there's some flash ability, kind of like that Tank Bigsby type of uh, player before. Now, Tank Bigsby is one of those guys that he's either going to get tackled for -4 yards on a catch, or he's going to drop it, or he gets you 15, 20 yards because he's broken through a couple tackles. Ollie Gordon is that. Just subtract the outcome of him dropping the ball. I think he does have pretty good hands. He just has this inconsistency after the catch. Sometimes he's able to break through a couple tackles and make it upfield. I don't want him catching passes out of the backfield a lot at the next level, but he does have the ability to do it. So there's the 3.5 out of 5 grade there. Now, pass protection, though. Obviously, if you're a 6'2", 225-pound man, I would hope and pray that you would be able to pass protect. That's not the case with all of these prospects. Ollie Gordon, on the other hand, is the case for him 100%. He is very good in pass pro, and I don't have any problem with him holding up against, being able to chip edge rushers or go one-on-one versus these linebackers that are blitzing in. He was exceptional. And he also, you go to A, B, C in your assignments when it comes to run blocking, especially if you're in that inside zone type of formation. So you look at the A gap, see if any pressure's coming, then you go to B, then you go to the C gap, right? He did that exceptionally well. Didn't see him miss any assignments there, so that's particularly good there. So he's one of the best pass blockers in the class for me. Kyle Monunga is another one of those guys that's really good. So he's up there with him for sure. In terms of his dog factor, he loves contact. He's very competitive. And, he's definitely got that dog in him, and he does get a 5 out of 5 grade for that. In terms of his analytics, if we just look at his 2023 season, it's definitely a 5 out of 5 for us, right? Or a 4.5 out of 5. Because it was such a fantastic season in 2023. But unfortunately, in 2024, he really got exposed in a lot of different areas. And although it wasn't a terrible season, it was 800 yards and 12 touchdowns. It definitely wasn't as good as it was last year. So we gave him a 3.5 out of 5 there. In terms of projected draft capital, I would have changed this if I saw him do good at the combine. He didn't do particularly good for me. So we're giving him a 2 out of 5. We think he's going to be in that 5th round pick range. In terms of creativity, nothing to write home about either. I've kind of hammered the nail too far into the wall here. He's just that downhill runner that hits the hole, and he can't really be creative due to his agility problems. I've said that multiple times now, so you probably get it by now. In terms of his potential worries and limitations, there's some similar worries that I have with Cam Scatabo, where he is very physical, and these physical backs are more so injury prone, right? Derrick Henry is one of the few guys that aren't like that. But yeah, he's very physical, and if he gets tackled by these linebackers and edge rushers and defensive tackles at the next level consistently, especially if he's a bell cow back, I do question his health. Even though he hasn't been hurt at the collegiate level yet, it is very hard for a human body to withstand that year after year with what he does as a runner. He's very violent, so I don't know how he holds up at the next level. And then the other painfully obvious one is his long speed and creativity. He is so limited at the running back position because of his speed and agility. I mean, he's not going to be able to be like a Bijan Robinson type of player where, Bijan's both physical and agile, right? Ollie's just physical, and he doesn't have the tools to be agile and be able to hit these creative cutback lanes. He just can't do it. And, if a team's able to get him in a specific situation where he can hit these open holes and get these 10, 15-yard chunk gains, he will be a relatively, you know, low ceiling type of running back, kind of like how Najee Harris is, but it's all dependent on the landing spot for him. And if he goes to a team like that just doesn't really have a role for him, he's going to get lost in the mix really, really quickly. So we're just hoping and praying that Ollie Gordon can go to a decent team with good run blocking. So how does Ollie Gordon stack up with the rest of the 2025 class? Well, in the screenshot you see here, Ollie Gordon is dead last. Now, that's not necessarily accurate. It's just based off of the people that we've done videos on thus far. He isn't dead last. There are plenty of running backs that are worse than him. But as of right now, he is last. He just, like we said, he's very limited. And when you are a limited runner at the next level, it limits your production so much, and you can only be in these specific roles. Like, he's only going to be specific in pass pro plays where he needs to be used, that big frame in pass pro. He may be a goal line back on a team, but I just feel like his skill set is very limited for him to be a 3-down back at the next level. We want to give a special shout out to all of our Patreon members. So thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mazjack, and Infamy MTG for supporting the channel. We really do appreciate it. If you want to become a Patreon member yourself, you'll gain access to a lot of really cool things like a private Discord server, private live streams. You'll gain access to videos early. And we even do custom videos for our Patreons per request. We've already done one on Isaac Garindo, and we're interested in doing a bunch more of those. Now, if you do like the content that you're seeing, you can like and subscribe. It definitely helps us out for sure. And if you're interested in a specific prospect, please comment that person below. And finally, thank you guys for watching.